Hi, everyone, and welcome to the AI in Action meetup. I'm your host, Anthony Kelly. Today, I'm delighted to be able to pronounce the third virtual meetup and the second virtual meetup on AI in healthcare. Um, so we have got two fantastic speakers lined up for today. Um, Sorry, I just wasn't prepared for that to share like that. So we've got Marco Schmidt, who is the Chief Scientific Officer and co-founder at BioTX. And we've also got Bjoern von Siemens, who is co-founder, founder and managing director at Surgical.ai and caresyntax. Um, so I just quickly want to share a little bit of information about all this and myself. So all this are an AI and data science recruitment company, and we're really passionate about sharing top quality information throughout the data science and AI community of Berlin. And with that, we've actually gone on to create podcasts and meetups. So like-minded individuals can share information amongst each other. Along with that, we've also successfully had our first AI awards, which we co-joined with some other meetups throughout Berlin earlier this year. I wanted to include some information about myself. So yes, I am a recruiter, but additionally, I help job seekers in other ways where you can understand more about different types of roles there are out there. I can help people with rewriting of their CVs, help people who are relocating understand the cost of living in Berlin versus maybe their home country, and then helping with your interview preparation as well. And that's with myself. But all this as a business, we break up into two areas: all this media and all this community. All this community will be what you're witnessing now, and it will be one of the meetups. So we have speaking slots, networking, and learning. So you'll also see after this, we'll have the opportunity for a breakout area where you'll be able to ask our speakers questions as well, with the information for that soon to be followed. And then all this media. So as I mentioned earlier, we have podcasts, which is also called AI in Action, and a sister podcast called AI Mentors. So in the health tech sector, we've had some pretty interesting podcasts in Berlin, and we also have podcasts across the US. So we have had Angeli Mollier from Bayer, the CEO of BioTX, so the other co-founder alongside Marco. We've had IBM Watson Health and Morantix Labs from Berlin, who a lot of you would know as well. So there's some interesting episodes that you will be able to check out on allthis.com, or if you check us out on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. So what's next for health tech along with AI in Action? So I want to uncover more content in the health tech industry. So if you know anyone who's using AI or really cool data science applications in their product that they're helping share to their customers, feel free to reach out to me. I would really appreciate that. Maybe we could set up something. And then I'm also looking to do more podcasts. So more podcasts and more meetups and content on the health tech topic. So that's enough of me for my introduction. So I'm going to now introduce you to Marco Schmidt. So Marco is a biochemist with an expertise in chemical biology and medicinal chemistry. In his PhD, he developed novel methods for drug discovery, and he is a co-founder and a chief scientific officer with BioTX. And BioTX specializes in AI design uh, for biomedical data. Marco, it's great to have you here. You're now live. If you can share your slides, I can run through those for you now.
Okay, hello. So, do you see my screen? Uh, um, it looks like I cannot share my screen. Sorry, I cannot share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen? Okay. Okay.
Hi everyone, just to let you know, we are still going ahead. We are just actually facing some technical difficulties. I think we may even start with potentially going with Bjorn first. I'll update you as soon as I possibly can.
Here we are.
We got it. We got it.
So can you see the slide? Okay, I maximize now. The topic is a repurposed drug for the treatment of COVID-19. Please ping me if you cannot see it. Okay. Yeah, some words about my person. So I'm a biochemist. I studied in Berlin and in Tübingen. I did my diploma thesis and my PhD in drug discovery, drug development. Then I moved to the University of Cambridge in the UK. And I did my postdoc for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, working on anti-infectives. And then I also applied for my own funding. So I was a Marie Curie Fellow. I did a Marie Curie Fellowship at the University of Cambridge. And after this time, then I moved on to the University of Potsdam. And then I also applied for startup funding, so-called Exist, and then set it up Biotech AI. So a little bit closer in the beginning, most of the slides I'm showing today are also based from my book, Chemical Biology and Drug Discovery, which will be released later this year, so probably in December. So if you want to know a little bit more about this, so I can recommend this book for more detailed view of this. So welcome to the genome era. So the cost of sequencing a genome is dropping down. 20 years ago, it was 100 million or $1 billion US, and nowadays it's a couple of 100 US dollars. So that makes a lot of progress. However, the situation in drug discovery and drug development is a little bit difficult. The problem is it is much more difficult to develop a new drug molecule. And you see this in the internal rate of return of the big pharma companies, that their loan interest rate has been dropped, or the return of investment has been dropped under the internal rate of return in 2015. That means drug development is in danger of becoming non-profitable. And that would mean that in future there will be no more drug developments. So I'm going into a little bit more into detail. So what is a drug and how does it work a drug? So a drug molecule itself is mostly a small molecule or a biological, an antibody. And in the theory of the key lock theory, we call it a key. So it's just a key over here, and we need to lock a so-called drug target. And only if this fits, we have a mechanism how to deal with the disease or can modify disease status. So first of all, it's very important to find the lock, so-called the drug target, and then we need a key for this lock. So normally you screen a lot of small molecule libraries to find a key for this lock. And if you have found one, you just try to make it better. And with this one, when you have improved this key, then you go on. And this is the normal pipeline in drug development. So I said here in the beginning, drug discovery. So you discover a key, a drug, but then you have to show that it actually works. So you go into preclinical testing, and here it's important that it's non-toxic. And then the next step, it's a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, is that you test it in animal models and at least then in humans. In the first one, you test it mostly in animal models or also in humans. Is it toxic or not? In phase 2, you just look for the dosage, what you can give, what you can administer. And the third one is very important. Here you have to show that it will actually work. So you go for efficacy. So the whole progress is extremely expensive. It cost you more than $1 billion, and it took you 15 years. And the success rates are very, very small. So as you see here, the success rate in preclinic is okay. Phase 1 is also okay. But the real problem is phase 2, because in phase 2 is the first time when you just go for efficacy. In the next phase, you see you have an increase of the success rates, because this is here the bottleneck. If you went through the bottleneck, then it's much more better. So in total, the success was only 10%. What are the reasons for failure in phases 2 and 3? And you see one quarter, 25% is company decision making. Other 25% is safety. But the biggest problem is efficacy. So our biggest problem in drug development is that we cannot predict the efficacy in advance. And the point is that the in vitro data, so the lab data, what we acquire, it's not sufficient to give you a good prediction of the clinical efficacy. So this is so-called the gap between in vitro data and clinical efficacy. But you can also say there are really cliffs between each other. So that's why there's this famous statement from James Black, a Nobel Prize winner in 1988. He's actually the developer of the inventor of the beta blockers. The best way to discover a new drug is to start with an old one. So, what's slowing down? So the question is, how many drugs are out there? And this is here from a nice article in Nature Review Drug Discovery from 2017. And they just looked through all approved drug molecules by the Food and Drug Administration in the US. And you see the actual number of approved drugs is extremely low. It's less than 1,600. So imagine the arsenal is very small what we have. So with only 1,600 drugs available, we only know 1,600 drugs. Coming to the actual situation, coming to the coronavirus. We have nothing in hand. We have no drug molecule for this. The idea is to look a little more into the mechanism of this virus to find an existing drug that we can use for SOS treatment. So the coronavirus normally docks via a receptor so-called ACE2 to the host cell, where it can then enter. Then it is internalized. Then the virus breaks. And this thing here is the RNA. This came free. And this is then replicated. And there's an also, or that's in the next step after the replication, is that these RNA molecules are also translated into viral proteins. But the virus also contains viral proteins from the beginning, shown over here. And only after the assembly of the RNA, the viral RNA, and the viral proteins, there exists coming new viruses which can be going out of the cell. And this is an amplification step. I read that it's not shown in this figure, but it's not just only one virus which leaves the cell. It's many, many viruses. And that's why from this replication cycle, you have 3 possible points where you can target the coronavirus. First is the entry. The second one is the replication. And the third one is targeting the viral proteins. So coming to the strategies for drug repurposing. So as I said, there's the idea to block the entry, the replication, or the viral protein. So going into a little more into detail of the entry or possible entry inhibitors. And I found this that is published by Causally, an AI company, and they say AI helps identify possible treatments. And they went through all the literature, and as I said, they found the ACA2 gene over there, and then they could match that the so-called drug chloroquine can bind to this. So that is then the correlation between this entry point and a possible potential drug molecule. The problem with chloroquine, it is a drug with many targets. So in the beginning, I said there is this key lock theory, but chloroquine is very famous that this drug does not bind to a specific target. It binds to multiple targets. We call this polypharmacology. And that's why chloroquine has a huge adverse effect. So when people started talking about chloroquine as a rescue drug, as an SOS treatment for COVID-19, I was very skeptical. And my skepsis was already, it was shown that my skepsis was right. As you see here, there was a chloroquine study in Brazil, and at least 12 people died because of the treatment. So going back to the strategy for drug repurposing, there's also a chance to block the replication. And there's an Ebola drug, remdesivir, and this one was also be found to be effective against RNA polymerases, so against replication. But as you see here, first trial for potential COVID-19 drug shows it has no effect. Is this more convenient now? Okay, cool. Going into replication, there's this Ebola drug, and you see it also very critical if there's effect or not. Last but not least, there are also the idea to target viral proteins. And here I have to say I worked in my PhD on the SARS coronavirus main protease. So not say SARS-2, on SARS-1. And my impression after 4 years working on this is that this is not a very good target. There's a publication from 2005 where they say that synanserine is an inhibitor of the SARS protease, and the SARS-1 protease is more or less identical to the SARS-2 protease, but actually it's a fake paper. So synanserine is not a good inhibitor. It's not an inhibitor. It's actually not working. So to conclude this, I know there are no easy answers. And I know that people are now looking for easy answers, but repurposing, just only looking in literature, does not work. So what we do here at Biotech AI, so we focusing more on the genetics, and there's an evidence that there's a genetic effect on COVID-19 symptoms and resistance. However, the problem with genomic data is this is so-called white data. So instead of big data, the number of subjects is very, very low, but you have many, many features. And with this kind of high-dimensional data, you end up in the so-called multiple testing problem. And so you test in your small sample size so many hypotheses, but in the end, you end up with a coincidental result. And the most prominent example is the correlation between the US spending on science and technology and the suicides per Henning in the US. It's almost 1. So giving this, people can think about probably it's a good idea to stop spending all the money on science and technology because otherwise people have to die. But that's bullshit, you know? So what we're working on, our solution to the white data problem is that we use contextual knowledge and we just only go for well-informed hypotheses. So we created a knowledge network which takes contextual knowledge via metabolic pathways, protein expression, and protein-protein interactions. And then we just only go for these specific ones and look whether there is an interaction between this or not. And this allows us a much more better analysis of the data. And the idea is to predict the risk and resistance in a population based on genetics. And this is becoming very, very interesting because now we have also a paradigm shift in healthcare, going from break and fix to predict and prevent. So we think that also prediction models based on genetics in regard of resistance would be also a very nice tool because it can be delivered in a very fast way. And the next step, what we can also do is we go for the resistant predictions. That means that we understand what makes a resistant person and take this information for drug discovery. So taking the genes into account that have been shown responsible for resistance, can we translate it to the pathway? And in the pathway, they can look for drug targets and then think about an outcome and how to develop the therapy. So let me summarize my presentation. Drug repurposing is very attractive as it provides a shortcut to an SOS treatment, and we all looking for an SOS treatment. However, the problem is that the drug arsenal is very limited. There are only 1,600 approved drugs out there. We have limited knowledge and bias in the data. Actually, we have also fake news. We have fake publications that are taken into account in our AR analysis. But there are alternatives. We can take existing data, genetic data, clinical data for risk prediction, for prevention. And another good thing is that we can investigate the resistance that leads to new drug targets. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Excellent, Marco. Thank you. As it stands and as it looks so far, there are no immediate questions on Slido. But if anyone has any questions between now and the end, you can either catch Marco in the breakout room, or if you want to send the question on Slido, we will be able to bring the speakers back online at the end to answer any questions. So with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Bjoern. So Bjoern holds a PhD in business economics, and he also held the role of a PhD fellow at Harvard, and has since founded caresyntax and surgical.ai. Caresyntax are a digital healthcare group who are focused on improving clinical outcomes in hospitals. Bjoern, great to have you, and you're now live.
Thanks, Anthony. I hope you guys can hear me and see me okay. If you could confirm that in the chat, that would be great. Could you check if they can see the presentation okay? Looks like it, right? And also have the audio.
This is a big device.
Okay. Great. So thank you. Thank you for having me on this stream podcast. My name is Bjoern von Siemens. I'm one of the founders of caresyntax, and our mission is to make surgery smarter and safer. I'm actually right here in our Berlin showroom, which shows our technology solution. And maybe a little bit later in the questions and answers, we could go into any questions that you have on the solution. what are we tackling in terms of an issue? We're tackling an issue that is pertaining and impacting about 300 million people per year, which is undergoing surgery. And if you imagine undergoing surgery, you are taking, and people that are taking the surgery, I have a feedback here. I have a, is that sorry. Technology is not our friend today. So if you're undergoing surgery, you're taking a significant risk. In fact, because of the differences of practice of surgery, because of different procedures, the risk of going into surgery is higher than of getting COVID statistically, or the risk of dying through surgery is statistically higher than of COVID-19. And what we've done, or what we did about 7 years ago when we started caresyntax, we looked at the environment in surgery, which is a really quite kind of complex environment with a lot of different machines, a lot of different systems that are used to treat and to monitor the patients. And what is really particular about this situation is that essentially most of these systems are coming from different vendors. So if you look at it from a data interoperability perspective, these systems are data silos or data islands. And what we started out with was to start connecting these systems with IoT devices. We can actually see them over here, such devices, and collecting the data and the information from these systems into one unified data warehouse. And with that data, we started working with video data, we started working with device data to essentially achieve similar processes and similar level of safety that we see in other industries, such as, for example, the commercial airline industry. If a mistake happens or if there's life at risk in commercial airlines, then there's a flight recorder, there's a systematic analysis of what went right and what went wrong, and then this mistake is addressed and then kind of globally addressed. And this is something that has not yet happened in surgery because of lack of systematic collection of data. That's how we started out. This was our vision 7 years ago. And right now we're in a position that through this technology, we can actually, and through our platform, combined with others that are active in the surgical ecosystem, we're able to, on one hand, improve efficiency of surgery, but also have a massive impact on the quality of the surgical services delivered in the operating room. And that is really what caresyntax embodies. So essentially, if you take a step back and look at the journey of what we're doing, we're collecting data, we're analyzing data, we're learning from it, and then we're improving two things. On the one hand, we're helping the surgeon and the surgical team improve their skill set, their technical skills, assess and improve them. And on the other hand, we're helping with efficiency analytics and efficiency improvements in the surgical theater. What does it mean and why is it important for the surgical community and for the patients? On the one hand, for the surgeons, we're improving their work environment and we're improving their workspace with digital tools such as workflow automation tools, visualization tools that really help them intrasurgically or during the surgery guide their decision making. So you can compare that with an assistance system that helps a pilot or helps you if you drive your car not to turn right if there's a car in your blind spot. So those are the assisting systems that we have for the surgeons. For the patients, of course, that means that you have, when you go into surgery, a lower risk profile if a system such as ours is installed, because we're essentially supporting the surgical team and making the procedure safer and more standardized. For hospitals, it's a massive issue, surgical variability, because of the complications and because of readmissions of patients and because of risks of malpractice. That is one of our core value propositions, that we are protecting the surgical teams and the hospitals by collecting the data from malpractice lawsuits and from malpractice cases. And that's how we interface with the insurers as well, where through the insurers, we're able to offer our services and our software to the hospitals in a combined risk management package. So if you look into the details of the value add, what we said earlier is, for the surgeons, on the one hand, we're helping through guidance systems during the surgery, but we're also facilitating administrative work, documentation of the cases, selecting different patients and setups in the operating room, all of the nitty-gritty things that usually were done manually or paper-based. We're doing it digitally, thereby reducing the administrative work burden of the surgeon. What we have achieved and where we stand today is that we have about 6,000 operating rooms which are using our solutions. So that's about 1,000 hospitals, some in the United States, some in Japan and in Asia. Most of our clients at the moment are in Europe. We also have a growing presence in Latin America. And what we've seen in our client base and what we've seen in the studies that we conducted or that we used as a basis for developing our solution is that surgical errors and surgical kind of deviations from procedures can be significantly reduced. That means that through digital tools, we can really make sure that the surgeon and the surgical team adheres to specific procedural guidance, and thereby makes the processes in surgery more efficient, but also safer. And that's another fundamental principle we believe in at caresyntax, is that efficiency and quality are not necessarily separated, but they're actually two sides of the same coin. So an efficient healthcare organization usually is also very high quality healthcare organization. And we can see this in the results of our clients, that really the efficiency and the quality are highly correlated, which is why our solution is addressing both in surgery. Another critical element, and of course where the commercial element comes in, which is equally important to quality, is that a major revenue driver for the hospitals is coming from surgery. Actually, or more than 50% of hospital revenues are generated from surgery, and more than 60% of the profitability of the hospitals is driven from surgery. They're of course also a major cost center. That means that hospitals which have an efficiently run OR block and are efficiently run and high quality run in terms of their surgical operations are profitable hospitals, whereas hospitals who don't have that area under control are more at risk at being loss-making. It's something that we already alluded to earlier. Insurance companies, malpractice insurance companies, but also health insurance companies benefit from better data and information about what went right and what went wrong, and can thereby help either address risk in the hospital or for the hospital and for the surgeons. They are providing a kind of digital safety net. And they can also, of course, select and improve their own patients or the patients that they cover health journey by directing the patient flow to the adequate caregivers. So I think something that is important and what is really coming out of the current situation for us is that we're seeing a massive uptick in demand, both for our analytics solution and our quality management solution, driven by the COVID-19 crisis, which essentially is a healthcare system crisis. Not a health crisis, but really a healthcare system crisis, because the systems are getting overwhelmed by not having enough critical care capacity. And we as caresyntax are really standing almost right in the center or next to the center of where the issue is coming from. So for the hospitals, they have to deal with two things. On the one hand, they have to take on COVID-19 patients and provide critical care capacity to them. On the other hand, there's a lot of other patients and people who need treatment and who urgently need treatment that they cannot treat if they don't have the critical care capacity. So making sure that the capacity that is available, both in intensive care and in surgery, is optimally used and used with a high quality, is something that caresyntax, as we discussed, is very deeply involved in. And that's why we're seeing really a lot of demand for our analytics solutions and our software solutions. And I copy in here an article, I think from today or from yesterday from CNBC. This crisis is now becoming apparent. And I know that in Germany alone, for example, we are spending about 3 billion euros per month just on covering the cost for the delayed surgeries. And this is just the economic cost. The other top point is that elective surgeries are actually usually not surgeries that you want to delay. These are not lifting surgeries or beauty surgeries, which you can delay without creating problems. These are cancer surgeries, these are cardiac surgeries, these are patients that need care for orthopedic reasons or other reasons. And if we don't treat them, they will get worse. And that's why it's extremely important to restart surgeries and restart the system as soon as possible. And that's something that we're quite deeply involved in. We're doing a lot of work in the United States already, where we have big engagement with the clients. We're starting the same work as well here in Europe with our clients and our partners to make sure that the hospitals can, during the times of COVID and after the times of COVID, optimally use their resources and treat as many patients as possible with the available resources at a high quality level. So I think we spoke about these three areas that we're providing. So on the one hand, we have well, that's kind of maybe as a summary again, the overview of our solutions. We have the efficiency solution, Peri-Op Insight, that I mentioned beforehand. We're offering our Qvident, which is more targeted on the quality side. So efficiency and quality, as we discussed, are kind of two sides of the same coin. And then we have a large install base of Prime 365, which is a data collection tool and a workflow management tool. And with that, thank you very much for your attention and the time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent, Bjorn. Thank you.
I can't hear you. I can't hear anything.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. But I can also I cannot hear him.
No. I could hear you in the beginning, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, so it keeps muting me very quickly for no reason. I don't know why. So question one for Marco, can you give us a brief idea of how quantum computing can help in drug discovery?
Yeah, it's definitely a chance because you have a lot of, as I say, you have a lot of problems where you need a lot of computational power, and it's definitely the case. First of all, docking studies, even for synthesis, so a lot of range of applications for this.
Okay, cool. So Bjorn, next, two questions. Question one, how has the feedback been from the hospitals you've implemented in so far? And question number two, what geographic markets are looking most promising?
So I think from a feedback perspective, because we've been in the market for such a long time, we have really collected a lot of feedback, and not all of it was always positive, obviously. So we had a lot of challenges in the beginning with integration of certain data sources, and we had a lot of challenges with making sure system interoperability worked. By now, we have a very rock solid set of solutions that are quite kind of plug and play. So hospitals are very happy in general when we install our solution. And we're collecting a lot of feedback from our hospital clients. Then we also have hospitals where we're working closer. So we're working, for example, with Inselgruppe or with Shiva Medical in Israel or with a lot of US hospitals. We have data sharing agreements, and there we're even co-developing solutions, algorithms or things like that together with the hospital partners. And so the feedback is really, really good and positive. Also because we're vendor neutral and we're kind of an open platform, and usually most companies that are providing these data platforms, they're trying to like lock them into their own ecosystem. And this, I guess, Android more open source approach that we took is quite well taken. And from geographic markets perspective, definitely US is by far the largest healthcare IT and AI and healthcare market overall. So we're seeing a lot of traction there. As I mentioned beforehand, through our partner investor Mitsubishi Corporation, we're also well positioned in Japan. And here in Europe, we're collaborating quite a bit with insurance companies. So Germany and France are also, very ready for this kind of solution. It's less pertinent to markets that don't have the infrastructure yet. So if you're in the build-up mode of hospitals and surgical centers, then you're not looking so much to the quality yet. You're looking to create the capacity first. So it's more for markets that already have a relatively developed system.
Okay, cool. Next question we have is, one big challenge for AI in healthcare is the lack of correctly annotated data to feed into the learning algorithms. How is this done in your system? It doesn't say who this is directed to, so maybe an answer from both of you would be nice.
Yeah, I can start. So we collect a lot of data and through our data sharing partners, and then we have to employ essentially surgeons to annotate that data. So we need specialists. We have surgeons on our team. We have a chief medical officer who's a board certified surgeon. And then we have a panel of surgeons, and they are then grading the videos or analyzing the data. And we have data scientists on the other hand who are making sure that the models are developed in a robust way. But for sure, it's it's a challenge that where you need to basically invest heavily because these people are very expensive and charge the same as a surgeon would do to basically look at the video and figure out how the surgery was performed. Then the key is, of course, to utilize that to automate what they are doing manually, and that's where then the scalability of these solutions comes into play.
Excellent. So the next one looks to be for Bjorn. It's like, do you see differences in adoption rates of your software in hospitals between the USA and, for example, Western Europe or maybe even Asia?
Yes, absolutely, big differences. The US is more open to cloud software systems, and in Europe, and that's regulatory. That's not from decision makers' perspective. It's really driven by, for example, in Germany, the hospitals are not even allowed to store the data outside of the physical premises, and that makes anything cloud related much more challenging. You can still deploy on a private cloud within the hospital, but if your software is running on Microsoft Health, Amazon Health infrastructure, then you just create specific solutions which make it much more costly and slower. And so that's definitely a major hurdle to the adoption. But both Western Europe and the US are basically very interested in this kind of solution. It's just in the US, it's more open. Data sharing is easier than in most European markets.
Okay. And then another question for Bjorn. Where is the majority of your team located?
Majority of the team is in Europe. So we have offices in the US, in Boston, with a very quickly growing team, about 40 people in the US, about 110 people, 120 people in Germany and actually Europe. And then we have an office in Tel Aviv and a small satellite office as well in Tokyo with another 15, 20 people, but mostly R&D focused people in Tel Aviv.
Okay, we've got some other questions coming through via YouTube now at the moment. So what data platforms are prominently used for big data processing? Again, it doesn't say who it's directed to. Maybe if you both want to take a stab at that one.
To be honest, the question cannot be answered specifically because it always depends on the data.
Okay, and then we just have what looks to be maybe a final question is how data versioning is done for your experiment. Do you use tools like Pachyderm or DVC?
So from our side, I can say no.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, excellent. Well, look, I think that conducts us for this event of AI in Action. We do have a link available where hopefully, if the speakers have time, you'll be able to do a meet and greet, sort of like a breakout. If you join that link, so it's HTTP. That's the link on screen. If you join that, you should be able to hopefully join a room with the speakers. But other than that, Bjorn and Marco, thank you for your time. It was great having you on the AI in Action meetup. I'll hopefully catch up with you in the virtual meet and greets.
Thank you, Anthony. It was my pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.